At some point before their 8th birthday, nearly 2/3 of children will invent a completely invisible entity, give it a name, and treat it as a real member of their daily lives. For decades, the presence of these pretend friends was treated as a warning sign. This was the deficit hypothesis, the idea that imaginary playmates were a response to a psychological void. The assumption was that if a child was talking to someone who wasn't there, they must be struggling with loneliness, social anxiety, or a lack of real-world support. However, modern psychological research has largely dismantled this fear. When researchers compare children with and without these companions, they find very few differences in terms of shyness or isolation. In fact, many children who invent these figures are notably outgoing. They are socially confident, crave company, and are often the most active participants in group play. This creates a puzzle for researchers. If these children aren't retreating from the real world out of loneliness, why are they dedicating so much cognitive energy to inventing and maintaining a second one? This shift in data suggests that these companions aren't a symptom of distress, but a proactive engagement with the world, a way for a child to target and develop specific social skills. Early childhood is defined by the egocentrism hypothesis. At this stage, toddlers naturally assume that everyone else in the world sees, knows, and feels exactly what they do. Maintaining an imaginary friend forces a child to break that mold. To keep the play going, they have to simulate a second mind, one with its own unique thoughts and motivations. These invisible companions are often surprisingly uncooperative. They frequently disagree, refuse to help with tasks, or even throw tantrums. They act as independent agents that the child cannot fully control. These internal disagreements turn make-believe into a specialized training ground. The child is forced to resolve conflicts and imagine the needs of another person in a space where the real-world consequences are low. These daily interactions function as social simulations. By managing a difficult pretend friend, children can rapidly accelerate their ability to understand the perspectives and emotions of others. This simulation also provides a rigorous workout for a child's communication skills. Research by Robbie and Evan Kidd suggests that these children develop a measurable advantage in referential communication, the ability to explain a new concept to a listener. In this scenario, the child's brain splits into two pathways, continuously shifting between speaker and listener. This repetition teaches them to strip away redundant details, providing only the specific information required for their partner to understand. The result is a child who is statistically more likely to be an effective communicator. They tend to be better storytellers and are more skilled at conveying complex ideas than their peers who don't engage in this type of play. Talking to an invisible entity functions as a linguistic gym, providing the necessary practice to master the real-world conventions of human conversation. By the age of 6, most imaginary companions begin to fade. As children enter formal school environments and build real-world social circles, the need for an invisible playmate diminishes. While the character itself disappears, the cognitive pathways they helped build remain a permanent part of the child's development. Adults who remember having a companion in childhood often show higher levels of creativity and achievement. They also score higher on measures of absorption, the ability to become deeply engrossed in a task or a story. This supports the giftedness hypothesis, which suggests that these early social sandboxes create a lasting foundation for complex reasoning and emotional resilience. The companion may go away, but the sharpened ability to communicate and interpret the thoughts of others stays with the individual for the rest of their life. But for some adults, particularly those in creative fields, these invisible companions never truly leave. Fiction writers often describe a phenomenon known as the illusion of independent agency. It's the experience of a character acting as if they have a mind of their own, completely separate from the author's control. 92% of professional writers in a University of Oregon study reported this experience. Authors frequently describe characters who pop up uninvited, dictate their own plotlines, or even argue with the writer about how a story should end. This connection to autonomous, imagined figures appears across a wide historical breadth, from the diaries of Frida Kahlo to Kurt Cobain's suicide notes. These professional writers are essentially utilizing the exact same cognitive mechanism that children use in the nursery. They are reaching back into that childhood sandbox to simulate the minds of others and generate original ideas. The creation of an imaginary friend is a targeted exercise, a way for the developing brain to build a laboratory and study the complex mechanics of social interaction.